Ms. Fisher?
I have several questions. First of all, the coordinator of out-of-district placement for the .5 position. $56,000 seems like pretty high.
That's half of an administrator's salary right now.
But is this person going to be an administrator?
Yes.
We'll have to have an
An
administrator.
O92, yes.
All right. And then same thing with the seed employee. I'm kind of confused on that.
The state evaluation, the new evaluation document and plan is going into effect next year, and our committee of teachers and administrators has determined that we are going to follow the state model. Right now, the state model has us doing 6 observations on every single teacher in the district. So that increases our observations about 5 times what they would normally be. So what I was looking for there was, and you can see in the breakout, was possibly someone who is in charge of pre-K through 6 and someone who's in charge of 7 through 12. So those would be 2 half-time positions that could be married to the out-of-district coordinator and the assessment pieces. So that then you would have 2 people in charge of that evaluation piece, really owning those pieces, but owning them elementary, secondary. And that's how and certification breaks off between 6 and 7. You're generally 7-12 or you're K through 6, or there's a bunch that are K-8.
And those also are administrators, but
Yes.
why is that salary $1,000 different than the out-of-placement?
Which one?
The coordinator of out-of-district is $56,000 and these are $57,000.
I think I was going with the positions that were in the budget for people who, we have 2 administrators who would be displaced and to be receiving new positions. And so one of them has an additional degree and there's a stipend with that. So I don't know which one, would end up with which position or which 2 halves of positions.
Okay.
But they were based on the 2 people who are currently administrators whose positions under this plan would not exist, and they would be getting new positions.
Okay. And my last question is in regards to health and phys ed and athletics. And I'm very confused at the breakdown of the money here and who's going to do what.
Okay. In the athletic director position, I was informed by CIAC that governs athletics that unless the person is working under an O92, an administrator cert, then they cannot supervise more than 1 building, an athletic director. It's part of the regulations just with athletic director. And so there would have to be someone who would be at the middle school 6-8. They do not have nearly as many sports and activities and intramurals as we do at the high school. So my thought was, and the teachers union is aware of this, but we have in no way, even opened the door to the negotiations that would have to happen. That my thought was that it would be a stipended position, and that's why there are asterisks here, would be negotiated. It'd be a stipend position at the middle school, and at the high school, one of the models that is popular is that it's a teaching position that is like half-time. But what I did was 0.4. So if it was a teacher who would be having the last block off every single day to be athletic director, that's 0.4 of the teaching. So they would only be teaching 3 other classes. And then on top of that, there's a stipend because it's a lot of after-school activities.
And do you think a .4 is enough time for someone to take care of athletics at the high school?
Well, it's done in other schools. That's, I think CIAC would love to see us have full-time people doing that.
And then, so with this, are we talking about 3 different teachers, or will there be one person who might do the head of PE health and be the athletic director at the high school?
There could be some teachers who would like to do 2, but my thought was 3 different people. It doesn't.
And they all have to have O92s?
No, none of those people have O92s.
And how can they evaluate?
They will not. You're still talking about athletics?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would not be evaluated.
So to evaluate coaches or?
The coaching is part of the athletic director's you can do that as an athletic director.
Okay, and then, so the
Can't
principal,
do teachers.
the principal would be the one evaluating
The athletic
PE
directors,
teachers?
right, and the PE teachers, absolutely.
Okay.
Other questions? Ms. Goldrich?
Back to athletics, is that are these 10-month appointments?
They go more than 10 months because you have to start the fall sports in August.
So they would be 11-month appointments, or ish.
Yeah.
And is it still the practice or policy that there's an administrator at every sporting event?
There is, and right now, Mr. Phelps is the administrator, and he does attend all of that, so that's another negotiation with the administrators union because an assistant principal or a principal would have to be at each event.
So if we don't have, and so these teachers, teacher position, athletic director / teacher, they would still have to be, since they're not going to be in the administrators union, there still have to be some other administrator.
Correct.
At every event. Thank
I'm going to recognize Mr. Gentleman, and I'll recognize
Dr. Conway, trying to understand, I think you said it a moment ago, but let me see if I understand it correctly. The coordinator of out-of-district personnel .5 would in fact be the same person as the individual filling the .5 seat?
Very possibly, correct. There are 4 positions that I would say are .5 positions.
Right.
And so there are 2 full-time people who would be displaced under this plan. So each of them would get 2 of those halves.
Well, that's important because, to me, maybe to others, because when you ask us for .5 at 57,000, it wouldn't take a lot for that to grow into a 1.0 FTE. And 2 years from now, I can see the recommendations before us. If we were to create 4 of these .5 positions, I would fear that suddenly there'd be a case made to go to 1.0 on each of them, and then we would have increased our administrative salary load substantially. So if these people are going to, if I'm going to vote for this, it's with the understanding that in fact, .5 is going to be the same person for that as the seat
That's my plan right now.
right now. That's my plan for a long time. But seriously, and it's pretty much the same thing with some of these other point positions. To what extent it would be the same person versus expansion into a 1.0.
You still have a comment?
Can I ask about the, let's drill into the need for a out-of-district placement person. Could you talk about that and elaborate the need for that?
Right now, our Director of Pupil Personnel is Patty Buell. Patty does all the out-of-district placements right now. That includes our 64 students who are outplaced, and so those are multiple PPTs throughout the year, all over the state and beyond. In addition, we must attend in some way every PPT and Section 504 meeting under ADA for every magnet school or charter school student we have who is one of our, comes from Vernon. So that adds quite a few more to that. And so on any given day, you will hear Mrs. Buell say, I'm off to this place, that place, and the other place to conduct PPTs all over the place. And so if we were going to expand that role, we need to take something off that plate. And that seemed like a clean thing to take off the plate. It's not something that the director has to do. It can be another administrator who is trained to do that.
You still have the floor, Mr. Gentleman.
You didn't mean to say every magnet school student, you meant.
Who is identified under IDEA and, right.
Right now, we've mushroomed up to 64 outplacements, but we didn't have that last year. And we might not have it next year. And so if it went back down to a more consistent number than we're used to, it would be back down into the 30 and 40 range. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, would that position be justifiable if it were back down to the 30 and 40?
We'd have to see about that. Right now, when you add all the magnet school, IDEA students and 504 students, it's quite a few. To keep that person very busy.
So Ms. Fisher, you had a follow-up?
Uh,
And then Ms.
Well, you were talking about an administrator being at the athletic events. I don't know how Mr. Phelps gets to events when they're at the same time. How does that work?
He goes to the more high-profile events. He can answer that better. I think he's here, actually. I saw him earlier. But he can certainly answer that better. But I think it's the more high-profile events where you're going to have a lot of spectators and where you might need an administrative presence. He goes to evening basketball games, certainly football games, hockey games, games that we're going to have a good attendance.
Now I have some questions about the department heads, department facilitators, subject leaders. Elaborate on that.
What I'm trying to do here is to flatten the hierarchy and move the work closer to the teachers, which is where it needs to be. Teachers need to be working on curriculum, which they do, certainly, always. But these are the things that need to be happening. We need to create teacher leader positions. This is another part of our commissioner's theory of action, that teachers need to be leaders. The teacher coaches are more or less leaders and coaches at the same time, but they come out of the teaching ranks. And so we need to use these department heads that we have, department facilitators that we have, and we actually have some subject leader people as well right now at the high school, and use them as leaders in curriculum, in changing practice, improving practice. We need to engage them in the work. It shouldn't be done to them. Teachers should be engaged in the work and doing this work. That's truly where all the expertise is, right there at the teacher level. And so that's what those positions are all about.
Now, this $11,000 you have here, that's going to cover all subject leaders at all the elementaries?
That is, I was looking for just 4 across I'd love 4 in every school, but 4 across the district. So 1 in mathematics, 1 in science, 1 in social studies, 1 in English language arts or reading language arts.
So how would they have time to travel to the other schools?
That would be a stipend position. So some of that would be done on professional development days, organization after school, making sure that assessments are ready, release time to go into each other's classrooms to look at practice and share practice and new ideas, things like that.
Ms. Serna?
I don't understand, Dr. Conway, all of the shifting around and all. It still leaves me wondering who's doing what, like the halftime coordinator of world and second languages. What's the other half of the job?
It is a half-time job right now.
So that would not change?
No, it would become a department head. The person who has that job is the .5 assessment coordinator and .5 world language. That's what that job is right now.
Right now.
Yes.
So are you suggesting a change or not?
Yes, to a department head. Didn't I put that in?
No. Okay.
Okay.
So that person would now be teaching and would get a stipend for being head of the department?
That the department head would now be a teacher, not that person. That person
That's
is an
very
administrator.
confusing.